Hi everybody, Rue here with a synopsis of The Nun. I do not like scary movies, I don't watch them, but I love reading about them. I want to hear all about the scary story without actually watching the scary story. I got a pre-screening of the movie and I got to see it on Wednesday. I dedicate this video to all the people out there that are like me, that are too scared to see scary movies, but you want to know what happens. This synopsis is just for you. So also the spoiler alert, I'm gonna tell the whole story of what happened in The Nun. How it first started off, I felt like I didn't understand what was going on. It showed a scene from a different movie. You go to the next scene where you are in the castle where the nuns live and you know something's going down. There's the nun that was older, she had a key and she's like, I'm going in. And then so like the door opens and the door says like God ends here in like I think Latin, and you're like, ugh. First nun goes in and you're like, ugh. Of course stuff goes down and then like she starts screaming and you're like, oh my gosh. And then she comes out and like she has blood on her face and she's like, you know what to do, sister. It's don't let it take you. And you're like, ha. And then so like the young nun is like, oh, running up to her room. And then you're like, oh, she's got a plan for something. She's got the key. She's got the key now. And then like, then she does something that I didn't see coming, but she puts like a noose around her neck and then she ties it to her bed and then like starts to go on the window ledge and the thing is coming. The thing is coming for her and she's like, oh man, no. And then like she jumps off and you're like, oh. And where she landed was hanging in front of the entrance of the abbey and the stairs. You're at the Vatican and there's a meeting and you get introduced to Father Burke, who's gonna be one of the main characters in this movie. So they're talking to him and they're like, man, stuff's going down in Romania. We need you to go there. And he's like, okay, we know a nun lady that can help you out. She knows the lay of the land, all of this stuff. She's totally gonna help you. You got a partner to help you in this investigation. He's like, cool. So then he goes to meet Sister Irene. She's in the UK, and but she's American, and it's such a sweet scene. Like she's a teacher and she's teaching the kids, and it's like, oh, I love nuns. She meets with the father. He's like, you and me, we're going on a holy mission, and she's like, yeah, but you said that they recommended me because I've been to I forget, was it Transylvania? It was one of those countries in Europe. And she's like, I have never been there. And he's like, hey, don't worry. Things work in mysterious ways. They wanted you for a reason. And like, we all know the reason. We all know it's because she's like low-key psychic or maybe like full-on psychic or something. She's like, all right, let's do it. So they go on a trip to go to that castle. And they're on their way, right? Because what had happened was this other character you're gonna meet, Frenchie, he's a funny guy. Okay, so you meet Frenchie, and what happened is he does deliveries to the nun castle, and he saw that obviously there was a nun that had taken her life, and he's like, ooh, this is bad news. And so that's why he had reported it to Catholic authorities and so on. So anyways, they're going to find him because they need to talk to him for the investigation. And you find out more about the father, and he's like, yeah, I investigate, you know, like quote unquote strange happenings and, you know, like miracles and see if they're legit or so on. Like that's what I'm here to do. And he's all about the business. So they go to the guy's door and they knock and he's like, oh, hey, because, you know, they're in their normal clothes. Priests and nuns don't always wear their, you know, what's it called, traditional garb. And the father's like, she's a nun. He's like, oh, whoops, I'm sorry. And so he's like, can you take me there? And he's like, I'm not going. No way, like that place is cursed. But then Sister Irene asks, and then he's like, okay. It's more rural than any other city around it, so they have to take a horse and buggy to get down there, but the horse stops and they're like, oh man, what's going on with the horse? He's like, man, the horse knows that it's bad stuff over there and it doesn't want to go, so we're gonna have to walk on foot. And they're like, sure, that's cool. And then they pass like all these crucifixes made out of wood, and he says like Frenchie says like a really cool line. He's like, you know, usually crosses are to keep evil out, but I think this is keeping evil in. And it's like, ooh. And then so like they go to the front steps, and then like the priest is like, what's this? And he touches the blood and it's not dry. They're like, how is that possible? And it's like, you know how it's possible, because it's bad. And she's like, hey, let me show you the body of the nun. I kept her in like a root cellar so that hopefully she'll be intact enough for you to do your investigation. Priest, like, I didn't leave her sitting down like that. Like, she was laying down, like I laid her down, and now she's sitting up, man. I'm not going. And I'd be like, yeah, Frenchie, I wouldn't be going in there either. And then the priest, he's all like, Mr. Science, he's like, no, it's a common occurrence and blah, blah, blah. And he sees that the lady has a key, so he takes the key from her. They buried her, and then you notice that, like a bell was ringing, like all of the graves have bells on them. Cause like Irene's like, what is this? And then he's telling Irene, oh, well, back in the day, you know, sometimes people didn't realize people were not dead yet, they were in comas, so they would bury them accidentally alive, and if that were to happen, you ring the bell, and then people will know, oh wait, that person's not dead. Okay, so they go back to the main nun house, and they knock on the door, and they want to talk to the main nun, the abbess, and the abbess is like all shrouded in shadow, and you know something's off, and then she's all with a creepy voice telling them like, oh, you sister, I'm not a nun yet. And you're like, how do you know that? And so that's how I knew, like, don't trust this lady. And she's like, well, you know what? My nuns are so busy right now, okay? So right now they're taking a vow of silence until like this certain time the next day. So you can stay in these quarters over here, but you can't talk to them until tomorrow. The Frenchie guy's like, I'm gonna go, but now it's night. Someone in the mist, cause now there's mist, and then like you see like there's a rope dragging behind this person that's walking, and you're like, that's not good. Like he looks up, and all of a sudden there's a nun hanging above her, him, the one that he found earlier, and then so she's like hanging above him. I closed my eyes, but I know what happened. She straight up attacked him. He stumbled back and he one of those wooden crosses, and then he grabbed one and he's like, I'm gonna take this with me. And meanwhile, back in the castle, you're like, man, stuff's gonna go down tonight, and it does. And then the priest wakes up because he hears music, and then so he goes and investigates. It's like, don't investigate right now, okay? At this point, he doesn't think there's evil stuff, but it's like, oh, you know there's evil stuff. Yes, he gets attacked by the bad thing, and then he gets buried alive. And then so he starts screaming and ringing the bell, and then Irene uses her psychic powers, and she's like, that thing is like really smart, so it rings all the bells, but then she's like, you know, Jean Grey, psychic power activate, and then she finds exactly where he is, gets it open in time, and she's like, what happened? And he's like, okay, it's official, there's some bad stuff here, like this is officially bad stuff. And the next morning, like, she's all like, I'm gonna go talk to some nuns. And then we go to like a backstory of what's going on with this castle. Okay, so what happened was this castle was originally owned by a duke who was really evil, and he wanted to open a portal so that the demon thing can come out. He made a circle and had like 5 candle things with like blood in the things, and then like the thing opened up in the center, and like the demon was trying to come out, but then the Knights of Templar came in, and they're like, They had Jesus blood, and they like put a drop of the Jesus blood, and everything was a-okay. But now all the sisters feel like they need to always perpetually pray to make sure that the hellmouth or whatever that stuff is gonna stay closed. But with the war, it started to open the little portal, and then this other nun comes in, and then she's all like telling the nice nun who's talking to Sister Irene like, hey, it's your time to pray. And she's like, okay, I gotta go, they don't want me to tell you stuff. And then she goes to pray. Like the nun says to her like, to Sister Irene, like, you're not even a nun yet, like you should go home. And she's like, no, I'm gonna stay here. and nothing's really going well. Like, he found the books, and so he knows exactly what demon they're dealing with, which is very helpful for him. And so, but then the research room he was in closes off, and now he's stuck in there. And then like night falls, and of course that one abbess like just appears. You know, she's nothing's going on good with her. And then she's like, it's already too late for Irene, so there. And he's like, it's not too late. And then he fights the shadows and stuff, because there's bad things in the shadows. So Frenchie is in a bar, and he's like, has this like huge cross thing next to him. And then the bartender is like, man, those people at that castle, they're gonna be dead. So, and then Frenchie's like, no, that's not right. I should do something. So then he's like all excited about that. And back to the castle, we got Irene. They put her in the room. They put her in the room where the lady commits suicide. And it's like, what is up with you? That's a mean nun. They lock the door, and like stuff goes down. That thing opens the door for her, and then it kind of looked like Disneyland Haunted Mansion with all the lights, like da-da-da-da. It's like, oh, that was kind of cool. She runs to the room where there's a sister perpetually praying, and then you look and you see that there's a body covered, and then she looks at who it is, and she's like, oh man. And it looked like it just happened, like this lady just passed away, and she's like, okay, so she's kneeling and she's praying, and then all of a sudden, dun 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 dun, all the nuns come in, and they're like marching, and they're like, we're gonna pray. And it's cool, you feel good about it, and they pray in a circle around her, so it looks really cool. And then all of a sudden this bad thing pushes them all away, and they're like, ah! And then they're like, no! And then like she gets something scratched in her back. So then you go back to the father, and like stuff's coming to life in the room he's in, and he's like, whoa. And then next thing you know, Frenchie comes to save the day, and he like chops something's heads off. And he has a gun too, just in case. And the father's like, yeah, let's do this. So then they both go to where the nuns perpetually pray. So then she's like, all of us praying has been really helpful. Like, I think it's quiet for right now, the bad thing. And then he's like, what do you mean we? And you're like, oh my gosh. And then so like she looks around the room, and the room looks completely different. It's not as warm and friendly as it was before. There's nobody in that room except for a white sheet. He goes look at the white sheet, and that nun has been dead for a while. Oh my goodness. So all that time she was talking to ghosts, she's all like telling them, hey, I know what to do. We need the relic with the Jesus blood. Like, I think I know where it is. It's in the catacombs. We gotta seal that evil thing. I understand now why I was chosen to be here. These visions are meant to help people. So, all right, priest, I'm ready. Give me my vows. And then she becomes a full-on sister, and she's ready for battle. So like they go down there, because there's a Jesus with the Mary statue, and the Mary's going like this, and she's pointing the way to the Jesus's blood. And so like she uses the key, and out comes the crystal thing with the Jesus blood. So it's kind of big down there, and they kind of split up, which is never a good idea, but whatever. This was cool. She goes into a dark room, and she has a candle, right? And then you see a candle light up, and then it's like, and you're like, what? And then she looks down, and she's standing on the hellmouth thing, and she's in the center. This is bad. She put 2 and 2 together. The nun who quote unquote commits suicide, she was doing a sacrifice because the demon thing needs a human soul in order to manifest. So the lady made sure that her soul was not catchable. So you're like, oh, but yours is, and you're in the center of the thing now. Frenchie guy, oh man, this was like the Silent Hill game. He goes in a room, and there's all these nuns, and they have like, they're all dressed in white, and they have a bag over their head, like this isn't good. And they're all like, and this was a cool shot. So like, he walks, and then all of a sudden, all of them walk, and they part, and she's possessed. She goes up to him and holds his like by the throat, and he's being smart. He gets a little bit of Jesus blood and like puts it on her forehead, and she's like, whoa, thanks Frenchie. Now the demon thing's over here. So like she chokes him, and then he falls to the ground, and then I'm like, I don't know, it still needs a soul. But anyway, so then there's a battle and somehow they end up in the water. Like this part I didn't get. Like I was kind of like, hey father, you should have just blessed the water and just like splash it. The bad nun is trying to like drown Irene. This is the vial. So she's like, oh. The bad nun is all like, not today, sister. Okay, there's no bubbles coming up, so I'm gonna bring her up. So she brings her up, and it's like Irene and like the nun, and then Irene like opens her eyes and spits Jesus blood all on her, and you're like, yeah! And then like the blood goes into the water and transforms it into holy water, and then it becomes a big toilet, and then it goes, the water goes down, and then it closes and seals the hell mouth thing, and you're like, yeah! It was a good feeling. You're like, yes. And then Frenchie came to, and he's like seeing that, oh no, Irene is like passed out. And so he starts doing mouth to mouth. She wakes up, and then she's all like, what's your name? Maurice? Maurice, thank you for saving my life. And then so they're leaving, and the light dramatically changes. Like now you get to see the sun, and then you see there's an upside down cross on his neck. You're like, no, not Frenchie. But fast forward to the lady and the guy that like are psychic investigators, and you get to see Frenchie again, and it's they're showing him as an example of an exorcism, and you're like, oh, man, I just wanted a happy ending for Frenchie. And you see in the audience is that one lady, she was in Amityville Horror, and you see that where this ends is where that cycle begins. But I was really proud of myself for facing a fear, and I saw a scary movie all by myself, and I loved it. I don't know if I'd ever do this again, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this synopsis, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll see y'all later. Bye!
Don't forget to hit like and subscribe.